So the biggest media trend that insights professionals need to keep on top of for 2016 is just the migration of consumer usage, both in terms of how they're consuming video on TV. We now have a new, pretty formidable competitor in Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu. And so we need to watch what's going on in terms of how people are spending time on their TV. And how much time is moving to SVOD. We also need to understand how time is moving away from the TV to other devices like PCs, mobile, and tablets, and just have a really good full view of overall video consumption. So the role of content in the future of media is basically, it's everything, right? Content becomes the thing in a world where there's tremendous amount of choice, consumer choice. We talk about there being 400 plus original series available on broadcast, cable, and SVOD. Great content is the thing that cuts through the clutter. Great content is the thing that continues to define your brand. And our view is that brands are more important in this world than they've ever been. There was a quote last year at this conference from Jeff Cole at UCLA, who basically said consumers will no longer watch shit anymore. Sorry to use that word, but the reality is content is the thing that breaks through, and the bar's higher, but if you create great content, you're going to get bigger audiences, more engaged audiences than you ever had. So the biggest obstacle to audience engagement, and I don't know necessarily that it's an obstacle, it's sort of what I just mentioned before. It's the amazing amount of choice that consumers have. It's also the fact that most consumers are not necessarily watching TV and not doing anything else. I mean, people have always had the newspaper to distract from TV. They've always had, talking to their spouse or talking to their kids while they're watching TV. But today you have devices, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a PC, and we know that most people are using those devices while they watch TV, during the content, during the breaks. And again, I think great content is the thing that breaks that. If you have great content, you're going to keep people's eyes from migrating away from TV. If you build great creative, you're going to keep people engaged through commercial breaks. So what media companies need to succeed in this multi-platform world, I mean, it starts with great brands. When I think about Turner and brands like Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, brands that are highly relevant to specific demographics, they are much more able to sort of cut through the clutter than more generic brands. So we need great brands. We need great programming that supports those brands. We need a distribution strategy that understands that sometimes a consumer's discovery process may start on a tablet. It may start at the website, and we need to make our content available everywhere. There was just the big discussion on the panel about Comcast X1 box. We should be, if our content is available, full episode streaming, it succeeds there. So I think it's a matter of great brands, great content, and a distribution strategy where your content is available where the consumer is watching TV. So the impact of millennials, it's a couple of things. First, it was really reassuring to hear Comcast talk about the fact that because they've built such a great consumer-centric service with Xfinity, that they're actually seeing great subscription levels with millennials, which is good. We need to keep them in the ecosystem. I think the other part is just what I mentioned before. We need to surface content. If you think about the content discovery process, we need to put content where consumers are. So it may be we need to just, for millennials, be much more digital-centric, knowing that content discovery may start with other platforms and then migrate to the TV set. So I think it's, again, it's about brands, it's about distribution, and it's also about making content available pretty widely. The future of media over the next 5 years, if I had the answer, I wouldn't be at this conference. I'd be figuring out how to leverage that for through Wall Street. No, look, I think we're seeing it now. It's a world where more and more viewing is on demand, you know, where there's more choice. It's where media companies like ours have actually done a lot of work in terms of trying to improve what advertisers get from TV and from digital media. We've just, you know, we've been very aggressive at building ad products to help advertisers drive greater ROI from television. We're also very engaged in trying to figure out what we could do to make the advertising experience for consumers a better experience that actually works harder for advertisers. So I think it's just more of what we've seen over the last 3 years. I mean, the last 3 years have been pretty disruptive. And I think the next 5 will just continue to be the same sort of changes.